Welcome to the bonfire, unkindled one.
Hey everyone, it's BlueLizardJello, and welcome back to Everything Possible in Dark Souls 3. Last time we began nearing the very end of the game, and we stepped into the Grand Archives, and unfortunately we had to discover what happened to our good friend, Greirat. But before we continue on, we do have a little bit of housekeeping to do, because if we actually go deeper into Firelink Shrine, we notice one of our other NPCs is now missing, Orbeck. Well, we will discover what happened to him later in this episode, but for now, fare thee well, good sir. Fare thee well. And before we head back into the archives, of course, we need to take a look at the gear we will be using today. We have the halberd upgraded to plus 10 with the heavy infusion. A dagger plus 10 as well, infused with sharp. The Avalon upgraded to plus 9, didn't feel like using a slab on the Avalon. The Pyromancy Flame, which has been upgraded to plus 10, although it really doesn't matter for this particular build. The Crystal Chime, completely unupgraded, again, not important for this build. I do have both Splintering Bolts and Exploding Bolts. One of them is used to great effect, and one of them not so much. The Old Sage's Blindfold. Pyromancer Garb. Cornyx's Wraps on the arms. Brigand Trousers. Boy, I went really slowly through my armor. The Lloyd Sword Ring, for the extra damage when my HP is full. Lingering Dragon Crest Ring, this is actually going to be used quite a lot. The Sun Princess Ring, just for that really slow HP regeneration. And then the Saint's Ring, so I can actually use more spells. Estus Flask, Ashen Estus, well, you know the drill. Although the Alluring Skulls will definitely come in handy in a few spots. And if you want to take a look at my stats and my level, here it is now. I am going to talk over this and mention that those bolts that I bought, the Splintering Bolts, I actually don't end up using at all. The Exploding Bolts actually work very well though, but those are only available once Greirat has gone to Lothric Castle and you actually pick up his ashes. And just a quick look at the spells that I will be using today. Hidden Body, we're actually going to be using this quite a few times. Rapport, you probably already know where I'm going with this one. Blessed Weapon, for the damage as well as the HP regeneration. Bountiful Light, this is going to make it so our build is a bit synergistic, so we're actually going to be playing on different factors of our build, and Power Within so we can get that extra boost of damage at the cost of our HP. But now, let's jump back into the Grand Archives, and let's make our way towards the very last Lord of Cinder. Feels good to be back in the archives. We're going to take this right into the elevator, the shortcut that we unlocked towards the end of the last episode. And this is going to bring us almost exactly to where we left off last time. And of course, if you're in an elevator, I'm going to go ahead and send that down just in case I do need to use it. It'll make it a little bit easier. Now back that way is where we fought those three NPCs, Kamui, Daughter of Crystal Creamheld, and Lion Knight Albert. And then straight ahead, right at the top of all these stairs, very reminiscent of some previous areas in Souls games, especially leading up to Boletarian Palace in Demon Souls. That is where we're going to find the last Lord of Cinder, amidst this emblazoned sky with the angels flying around. Remember, the angels and the Dragon Slayer armor definitely were connected. But we are actually going to be heading onto the rooftops here for a little bit more exploration and a lot more gear. Very valuable gear, I might add. Heading up these stairs, we already saw that one shiny. This isn't one of the more important pieces, but we will be picking it up. But just take a look at that sun, or really, the dark sign. I just love that revelation in this game, and whether it's something that Miyazaki planned ahead of time, Honestly, I'm not even too concerned because it just fits so nicely into the theme. You saw that we just grabbed a soul of a crestfallen knight, but if you come over here to where the rail has been broken, we can continue onwards and upwards. You can even see a shiny, but also you can see some winged knights. In fact, we'll take a quick look with the binoculars just so you can see them a bit more clearly. And since we already saw I will be using rapport, many of you already know the trick that I'm going to be showing you, because this can be one of the best soul farming spots in the game. Granted, it is towards the end of the game, but if you're still hurting for levels or if you just need some consumables, it is a great spot to farm souls very quickly, especially once you get the method down. Spoiler alert, I don't have the method down. But before we engage them, as long as we stay pretty low and we circle around, we can actually not engage them in direct combat. Instead, we can loop around to the back, onto this other roofed section. And down here on this corpse, this shiny is the very last Estus shard in Dark Souls 3. And since we are on the backside, we are outside of their aggro range, so we can continue without actually engaging them in combat. So instead, we're going to go up these stairs. We have this ladder here. It's a bit of a long ladder. And then we have another ring. This time, it is the Hunter's Ring, which increases our dexterity by 5 points, which in and of itself has a lot of uses. But frankly, I'm more interested in the lore behind the ring. The hunters serve Lothric on the fringes and in the shadows. For generations, rulers of Lothric have relied especially upon the Black Hand hunters to punish enemies in ways that the King's 3 pillars cannot. So the Black Hands that we know of are Black Hand Gotthard and Kamui, but it does mention that there are 3 Black Hands. Is it the corpse that is actually here where we find the ring? Well, a lot of people have actually theorized that the player character themselves is one of the Black Hands, and there's definitely some evidence to support that. I'll see about linking some of that in the description below. Well, now it's time to start employing the tactic that I would use to farm souls. So at this point I have used Hidden Body. Now they have become aggroed, except they don't know where I am, so I can immediately use Rapport, which is going to pit the Winged Knights against each other. And then really, it's just a matter of watching the carnage unfold. Now none of these spells last particularly long, but I am using that Lingering Dragon Crest ring to actually extend it. But you can see, 2 of them are near dead. Well, frankly, one of them is dead, and this one has very little HP remaining. Now I am going to use Rapport on him, and well, this is where the strategy kind of falls apart for me a little bit. You can see I'm trying to get his attention and lead them together, but they're just not that interested. By the way, just because we're invisible doesn't mean we're silent. Finally they engage, but it seems that Rapport has already worn off, so now I'm just going to run as far as I can, break their aggression if I can using Hidden Body. A little bit too close for comfort. Now here I am using Rapport again. The problem is, again, the Winged Knights are just too far apart to really care about each other. So instead what I do is I use Rapport on both of them. I can refill my Estus, or my Ashen Estus, and now, with my Dagger and Blessed Weapon, just see the damage that I put out. And this isn't even the maximum damage. In fact, I could be doing a lot more if I were using this build more effectively. We'll be getting all the drops here once all of them are dead. I could be using things like the ring that boosts the critical attacks, or I could be using Power Within, which is the reason I actually brought that spell to begin with. But it still doesn't hurt that I can do this much damage with a single backstab, and they just don't care because I'm invisible. Frankly, if I were invisible and I got stabbed in the back, I'd probably take a look around. And now I realize, oh, right, I made this build for a reason. And while it's not perfect, it is kind of fun to try out. So I've used Bountiful Light, I've used Blessed Weapon, I'm going to use Hidden Body and then refill again. Of course, Rapport, because I don't want him to bother me. then the backstab. 842 damage. Fairly respectable. Loop back around for another one. And that's the Winged Knights. Again, there are many other ways that you can do this. But for killing all three the first time, you do get a Titanite slab. These Winged Knights do respawn, but you will only get a Titanite slab for the first time that you've killed all three. From that drop, we did get a large Titanite shard. We do get another large Titanite shard. And we get yet another large Titanite shard. Now you can get the weapons from these Winged Knights, or as I should say, the Ascended Winged Knights. These are stronger than the normal ones. But you can get large shards, chunks, halberds, twin axes, and even blessed gems, which is pretty good, especially when you're considering using these guys to farm souls, using things like the Symbol of Avarice and the covetous Silver Serpent Ring. You can get extra souls very quickly. But instead of going down the way that we came up, as long as we're careful, we can drop down here into what looks like a birdcage, complete with feathers. We don't see feathers too often in the Souls games. But over here on this corpse, Divine Pillars of Light. Now, this miracle, frankly, is rather underwhelming, and when you see the Ascended Winged Knights using it, you think, maybe I could use this pretty effectively, but lo and behold, they use it a lot better than we ever could. But the lore behind it is where it really starts to get interesting. The Queen's holy maiden Gertrude was visited by an angel who revealed this tale to her. Despite losing both her sight and voice, she was determined to record the tale. Ordinary men cannot decipher her fragmentary scrawl, nor comprehend how it became the foundation of the angelic faith of Lothric. Now, this in and of itself doesn't tell us very much, although it does reference the angels. But what we do know is that when we begin to put together some of the other bits of lore that we get, such as the description for Bountiful Light, or when we look at some of the descriptions for the Winged Knight's armor, it seems that it is quite possible Gertrude is actually Rosaria. There's a much better article that I will link in the description on Reddit. Here we have another guaranteed blessed gem, and you can hear we do have one of those grubmen shooting his miracle at us, just over there with his biden. Let's go pay him a quick visit. Now, as long as you're careful... Ooh, that was a little bit too close. You can get the plunge attack, but if you push too forward on the analog stick, it is very easy to fall off. By the way, extra points to anyone who's realized that I'm not even in embered form, which is why my health is so low. Couple of chests here. Remember the connection to Guinevere we were just talking about. In this chest, we have a Divine Blessing. And then we have 3 Twinkling Titanite. If you read the Divine Blessing description from Dark Souls 1, we learned that it's holy water blessed by Queen Guinevere. But in Dark Souls 3, it references the Queen of Lothric. So is Gertrude the Queen of Lothric? I'm sure many of you have other theories, and I'd love to hear those as well. I'm sure I'm confusing something somewhere. But let's go ahead back to the bonfire. And since we've already called down that elevator, we can just hop right on board. And this is where I'm going to do my best to really show what this build was all about. It was all about synergizing different mechanics in different spells, which is why I have things like Power Within, Hidden Body, Rapport. It's why I brought Alluring Skulls. It's why I have HP regeneration spells like Blessed Weapon and Bountiful Light. The problem is you kind of have to do it in the right order. Also, this build is so specific that, guess what? It actually only works if I'm unembered due to the amount of HP I have, and that's why I'm unembered. And that's because Power Within is a percentage lost of your current HP for every tick. So the higher your HP, the more you lose for every tick. However, Blessed Weapon Bountiful Sunlight and the Priestess Ring are set HP gains, so I had to actually balance my max HP with the spells and the rings. So as you can see, I was a little bit sloppy. I did my best to show off this build, and frankly, it's just not the most viable because none of the spells last that long. Some of these spells that were present in other games, well, they lasted a lot longer and they were a lot more viable. However, in Dark Souls 3, the nerfs were experienced very hard, and as fun as this was to do, it just wasn't as effective as it could have been. I am going to use Rapport on these Lothric Knights because they are far stronger than some of these hollows that we're fighting. So we'll just pick off some of the smaller ones. Let the Lothric Knight handle some of the others. Little bit of spin to win. Can't hurt. See? Super simple. Bowing because of how professionally that was handled. Look at just the carnage. We have Deserter Trousers, some large Titanite Shard. By the way, this is another area where you can farm souls pretty effectively if you don't want to fight those Ascended Winged Knights. Just keep in mind that Hidden Body only lasts for so long, and then those Lothric Knights, well, they're going to find you. I'm going to use Rapport on this Pike Lothric Knight. His range is actually going to make it so he can hold his own against this other greatsword-wielding one, who did hear me. Luckily, I can break his aggro just by running away. And now it's a waiting game. And it's frankly too long of a waiting game because, well, the one with the Rapport, he led the charge a bit too far. So instead, I am going to have to chase them down a bit, but that's okay. Most of these spells, in fact, I'm not sure very many of these spells at all are going to be used in the actual boss fight. So it's okay if I use all my Ashen Estus. Not to mention, I will be resting before I take on the bosses. Swing and a miss there, pal. But now you can just see just how quickly they take each other out. Once more with Hidden Body. Realizing that I didn't have Rapport equipped. You can see that aura around his head that indicates that he is now on my side. Might as well get some free damage on this guy now that he's just busted his weapon. Their depth perception is a bit off, and that's because the lore would state that they only have a singular eye and that the other one is actually fake. This is Interesting Not True Facts by BlueLizardJello. And that is the only time you're going to see me use Splintering Bolts, and frankly, it was an accident. But look at that. Stairway cleared. Large Titanite Shard here. And another large Titanite Shard. Ditto. And that was the last enemy standing between us and the last Lord of Cinder, which, technically speaking, Prince Lothric isn't the Lord of Cinder, but we can talk about that offline. And this is where I have a bit of a derp moment, because I'm trying to show you the different summon signs you can use for this boss, and you may want to use it. This boss can actually be a little bit tricky, especially in Phase 2, and having someone else there in order to actually take some of that aggression is not a terrible idea. But remember, I was unembered for a reason, so now, let's pop an ember, and let's revisit that area again. Here we have Orbeck. Orbeck's sign will only appear if you have bought all of his spells and you've killed the Cursed Rod of Greatwood. I don't know exactly why that's a requirement, killing the Cursed Rod of Greatwood. I don't see any connection between the two, but it's something that has been tested. And then we do have one more sign, but it's not over here. I apparently just wanted to show you an empty platform. Actually, it's because I completely forgot it wasn't over there. Don't tell Blue. Inside these doors, as the air rushes in, because apparently this has been sealed for quite some time and there was some positive pressure going on. But we do have one more summon, and that is our dear friend, Cirrus of the Sunless Realms. In order for her sign to appear, you must have followed her questline exactly, and you had to have her swear loyalty to you. As long as you've done that, you can have her help. Now, personally, I believe Cirrus is a lot more effective in this battle than Orbeck, but if you want both, go right ahead. We could just see the boss up there with binoculars, but as I said, we're not going there just yet. Instead, we do have another shortcut that we can unlock, and this shortcut has a bit of a secret, and you're going to want to explore this secret. You can see now we are back at Lothric Castle. We saw that elevator prior, but just like many of the elevators or mechanisms in Dark Souls, we couldn't activate it from the side we were on. Just to give you an idea of exactly where we are, just up and to the right, that's where we fought the Dragon Slayer armor. So let's head back to the elevator now that we've unlocked this bit of a shortcut. And we're going to activate the elevator, but we're not going to ride it. Instead, we're just going to wait for, you guessed it, a second elevator to appear. This time with far less onion bro. That was the worst onion bro impression I've personally ever heard. You have to backstep onto the elevator if you're looking for style points. Writing this down, you can see there is a bit of an alcove behind me, a nice bright shiny in this corpse, and this is going to be another guaranteed Titanite slab. We've now picked up 2 in this episode, so as you can see, extremely valuable to come down here. And now I'm going to head back to the Dragon Slayer armor bonfire. You're going to see an odd transition here because it looked like I was just going back to the last bonfire, but lo and behold, coming back to Lothric Castle. Sorry, I just cut out the spot where I went to one bonfire and then warped to the other. I just had to save time and hard drive space. You know, those gigabytes or gigawatts, they add up quick. And you know what? As I'm looking over my notes and watching this footage, well, there's really no reason to do that, except for the fact that I can now just take this right up to the bosses. Now you can see here that I am still embered, and that's just not going to work for this upcoming battle. So unfortunately I am going to have to bite the big one. Because as I already stated, the spells that I'll be using, they just don't synergize with the current amount of HP I have. Of course, this is something that I fail to remember until I just hear that summon sign and think, wait a second. If I can see Cirrus' summon sign, I've done something horribly wrong. So let's go ahead and make sure that I have less HP so the spells do work in tandem. Now during a boss fight, you can probably guess, well, you just don't have that many opportunities to actually cast those spells, and well, you're right. You're going to see just how effective or ineffective this build is. Poor Leylani. We are back. I am going to do just a little bit of rearranging to make it easier to switch between my spells and my different pieces of gear. And just before I trigger the cutscene, I am going to actually start buffing my weapons and myself. One thing I'm not sure of, and if any of you know, I'd love to hear it. Do the spells actually persist through cutscenes? In other words, does something like Power Within have a shorter lifespan if you watch a cutscene? Let me know in the comments below.
Oh dear. Another dogged contender. Welcome, unkindled one, purloiner of cinders. Mind you, the mantle of Lord interests me none. The fire-linking curse, the legacy of lords. Let it all fade into nothing. You've done quite enough. Now have your rest.
And here we have the twin princes. Specifically, we have Lorien, the Elder Prince. Now, Prince Lothric is the one who is actually talking during that cutscene, and well, we'll be seeing him soon. Now, this fight, it is really going to be about the dodges. I have found that using a shield can be very difficult because with how many combos Lorien can perform, you will quickly run out of stamina and have very few opportunities to actually dodge. Watch out for that very large attack. You do have some time to dodge it. You just have to make sure you time it correctly because it's very easy to think you're dodging at the right time, and frankly, it's just too soon. What you saw there was that you actually can get him into a staggered animation and get a critical. So I did remember that I had my dagger, which with a critical would do more damage than my halberd, and you can see he's going down pretty quickly. In fact, just a couple more hits, or a charge attack, and he is down. But of course, it's Dark Souls 3. It's not the end of the fight.
Oh, dear brother. I'm on my way. My brother. Unyielding sword of Lothric's prince. Rise if you would. For that is our curse.
Now we have Lothric the younger prince and Lorien his elder brother, and they always open with this attack. The problem is, oftentimes during that attack, he will also cast that soul spear that you just saw Lothric use. Now you have to actually kill Lothric, that's the name of the game. So killing Lorien, all it does is it knocks him down, and then Lothric will revive him again and again, although each time with less HP. We need to actually damage Lothric. So you can see here the dodges have to be very quick and you have to anticipate their attacks. For example, I didn't anticipate this. My goodness, this is tense even to watch now. When he does that lunging fire attack he just did, it is best to dodge towards them instead of away because that fire will catch you. The twin princes are weak to both lightning and frost, and they can be bled, but it can take a while. So I thought maybe I would use those splintering bolts, but in practice it just wasn't very feasible. So once Lorien is down, you do get some free hits on Lothric. Just be wary of this Wrath of Gods animation because that will do some serious damage. When they're getting up though, it does give you a little bit of time to buff, just not very much at all. You don't have to knock Lorien down in order to attack Lothric. If you can circle around and you have a weapon that can do some long reach damage, then you can actually just hit him while he's on his back. As you just saw there with that very large attack, be aware that Lothric will often follow it up with that soul spear, so be prepared to dodge immediately after dodging for the first time. Also, I didn't mention it before, but you did see it. You can actually get a stagger in this phase as well. Lorien is down. Lothric is less than half. Let's see how much damage we can get. Don't get too greedy. Use this time to heal and rebuff if you need to. I can even use some exploding bolts pretty effectively. Now remember, when this happens, you have to be conscious of your surroundings because not only do you have to dodge each of those bolts, but you can also have this soul spear. You can also have them teleporting to your exact position. This fight is one that really can take some practice, and for many people it was a wall, and I can definitely understand that. That charge doesn't have iframes, I just actually narrowly avoided that damage. So remember, dodge, watch the soul spear, there it is. I don't know if that's actually called soul spear, it looks more of a miracle. Spin to win for the finish.
As one, you remain among the accursed.
With the princes down, we get the cinders of a lord and the soul of the twin princess. That is the last Cinders of a Lord, and this would open up the final battle, which we will be taking on in this episode. But with the soul of the twin princes, we get 20,000 souls, and we have the option of making either Lothric's Holy Sword or Lorien's Great Sword. But if you actually make both of them, which means someone would actually have to drop you one of the boss souls so you could make both, or just go into New Game Plus, you can actually combine the two together. Think of this like the Northern Regalia in Demon Soul that you would get by combining both Demon Brand and Soul Brand, which I just think is such a great addition and a good reason to go to New Game Plus, and frankly, I wish we saw more of those transpositions. The reason we didn't head back to Firelink Shrine just yet is because with the princes dead, we have now completed yet another NPC's questline, Orbeck of Vinheim. As you saw, he left Firelink Shrine. We did see his summon sign right before the twin princes fight, but with them down, his duty is fulfilled. And as a scholarly man of learning, let's head to the library and see if maybe we can locate our good friend. But before, we do have some of these candle heads to deal with, so let's go do so in stunning fashion without taking any damage whatsoever. Because frankly, that's just how we roll. Did I say no damage? Did you actually believe that? Is this the first time watching this channel? I also do have to be careful because I don't have my head dipped in wax, and you can see the curse building up, although it is quite slowly and quite a large bar. I just don't want to be interrupted when we're taking a look at our dear friend. One more hit, narrowly avoid the curse, heal up. But over here by this stack of books, slumped in the chair, we can see a very clearly hollowed Orbeck of Vinheim. His duty fulfilled, he had no reason to continue. That's a reoccurring theme in the Souls series. Once your duty's fulfilled, that's when you're able to pass on. We do get Orbeck's ashes. Now, we can give this to the Shrine Handmaid, but frankly, there's no reason to. Because we've actually been following the Londor questline, we can go back to Firelink Shrine and turn these in for a unique weapon that can only be obtained through this questline. However, before we even get to that, which is a weapon that I do enjoy using, even though it's a bit gimmicky, let's go up to this fog gate and wait very patiently because frankly they never found a better way to load the external area for some reason. Also, if you do that charge attack, it does decrease the time by 0.003 seconds. Go ahead and try timing it. I'll wait. Yet another NPC has completed her quest. Since I'm out of bolts, let's go ahead and finish him with a nice sweeping attack. And here we have the corpse of our good friend Cirrus. And on her body we do get the Sunless Talisman. This is actually similar to Kaith's Chime. This talisman does work best with the Dark Miracles, and the reason is, it will actually scale with both intelligence and faith, up to about 45 intelligence and 45 faith, or at least that's where the soft caps are. Anything above that, you'll just get some diminishing returns. In appearance, it does look very much like the Dark Moon Talisman from Dark Souls 1. The weapon art of the Sunless Talisman is Unfaltering Prayer, which does offer additional poise, which can be helpful if you're in the middle of combat, but you really need to cast one of those Dark Miracles. Let's head over to our good friend Ludlith. And here we have Lothric's Holy Sword. This is actually a pretty good longsword. In fact, it's a pretty long sword. This sword has a unique property. Think of it like the Master Sword in Zelda when you're at full health. Using the weapon skill, Sacred Lothric Light will cause a beam of light to extend past the sword, but this actually doesn't do magic damage. Surprisingly enough, it does physical damage. And then we have Lorien's Greatsword. This greatsword has a self-buff, the Flame of Lorien. It transforms Smolder into flame and follow with strong attack to launch a flame across the ground. This sword has an immense flame damage coming out of it when you use that weapon skill. You have to use it, it's a buff, and then you do the strong attack follow-up in order to cause that flame burst damage. But seeing that is the final Lord of Cinder, we can now offer it, and we can begin the final steps to taking on the Soul of Cinder. With the final ashes in place, the Firekeeper approaches the bonfire, and if we're ready, we could take on the next step of our journey.
The 5 lords sit their 5 thrones, all thanks to thee, most worthy of lords. Ashen One, with the lords as thy witness, bend thy knee afore the bonfire's coiled sword, and let the lords' embers acknowledge thee as their true heir, a true lord, fit to link the fire.
At this point, with the way that we have been following the different quests, it is possible to still get all 4 endings. If we give the eyes to the Firekeeper, it opens up 2 possible endings. If we give the Firekeeper the soul and then we heal the Dark Sigil, that's another ending. However, if we continue on exactly as we are, we can usurp the fire, which is the last ending. I will be showing all 4 endings at the end of this playthrough.
Ashen One, may the flames guide thee.
Taking a look at what is now available, we can purchase as soon as I find it. As soon as I find it. Any day now, the Sunless Armor. We can buy Cirrus's armor now that we have completed her quest line. We can now also purchase a Titanite slab for 30,000 souls, which I most certainly will be doing. We are not shy in souls at all. We could also give Orbeck's ashes, but as I said, we have a better use for it.
What?
We did pick up that last Estus shard, so we'll turn that in.
Prithee, be careful.
And let's go talk to our friend from Londor, because she gave us a mission.
Ah, our lord and liege. Thine heart is fixed upon the linking of the fire. But, brave usurper, I prithee, wrest the flame from its mantle, so that we hollows, in most honest shape of man, may have it for our own.
We can now tell of Orbeck's death.
Ah, I see Orbeck's claim is proven false. As it should be our right and deserving Lord of Hollows. It is a Londor treasure befitting of a true Lord. Lord of Hollows, may the Dark Sigil guide thy way.
We get the Morian Blade. This is another returning item from Demon Souls. Now if we give Orbeck's ashes to the Shrine Handmaid, all we get is a clandestine cloak. That's it. But if we follow the Londor questline, we can get the Morian Blade. This Morian Blade, when you are below 20% HP, you gain 20% attack rating, and this does stack with the red Tearstone ring, so this is essentially the hyper mode that we've used in games past. But with all of the NPC quests completed, it's now time to enter the final zone in the base game of Dark Souls 3.
Noble Lords of Cinder, the fire fades. And the lords go without thrones. Surrender your fires to the true heir. Let her grant death to the old gods of Lordran, deliverers of the first flame.
And as the light comes back into focus, we find ourselves in the Kiln of the First Flame. For anyone who's played the previous Souls games, you would know that the Kiln of the First Flame is where we encountered Lord Gwyn. This is all beginning to come to a close. The sun, or the dark sign, very bright, very high up in the sky, in what looks to be the base of an arch tree, and many buildings and castles and ruins almost folding in on themselves like a scene out of Inception. Truly, the world is moving towards a centralized location. And we can now move to the First Flame. And I have decided to have a little bit of fun with this final fight by cosplaying as the one and only Incandescent Solaire. So let's take a look at the gear and I'll discuss how I got them. We have the Sunlight Straight Sword upgraded to +5. We picked this up in Lothric Castle. The Sunlight Shield, we got this by trading the Medican Staff with the Crows. I have the Sunlight Talisman upgraded to +9. The Iron Helm that you get by trading a Lightning Urn with the Crows. The Armor of the Sun by trading a Siegbroi. The Iron Bracelet by trading a Homeward Bone. And then the Iron Leggings by trading a Seed of a Tree of Giants. I have the Priestess Ring to increase my faith. The Lightning Clutch Ring to increase my faith and my lightning damage. The Estus Ring in order to get more HP for every time I chug an Estus. And the Saint's Ring again for more spells. I have my Estus and I have my Ashen Estus. And that's all I'll be using. And before we run up there, let's again take a look at a few things. The land is converging in on itself, but we also have, oddly enough, another bonfire that would take us to the Dreg Heap. This is for the Ringed City, the second and final DLC installment in Dark Souls 3. Of course, we will be tackling that, but just not yet. let's take a look at the spells. I have Tears of Denial, which means that if I do lose all of my HP, I can actually come back and have another go at it. I have Lightning Blade, and then I have Vow of Silence. Now, the final boss can use spells in a number of his forms, and using Vow of Silence will prevent him from using them, but it also does prevent you from using them as well, so use at your own risk. I just love the sound of the ash beneath our feet. And over here, we have the Londor Paleshade. If you've been following the questline, you can summon the Londor Paleshade complete with their very own Morion Blade. But it's not just the Paleshade who could join us. You hear another summon sign appear just as we crest the top of this staircase. And Yuria herself could actually join us for this final battle. And while frankly I would love to bring her into this fight, we've done it solo so far. I think it's time for Solaire to really prove his mettle. This next boss is no joke, and there are several forms that he can take, each of which has a unique subset of mechanics, tactics, and spells, and you need to be aware of each of them in order to come through successfully. I find it really interesting that you can actually see him off in the distance, almost sitting directly under the dark sign, resting at a bonfire. The one that actually graced the cover of Dark Souls 3, that is the Soul of Cinder, the embodiment of everyone who has linked the flame before. So now we're going to do our best to cast all of our buffs, including Tears of Denial, and let's just see how we fare. Just keep in mind that even though it is very reminiscent of Gwyn, and we'll see more similarities here very soon, know that you cannot parry him. Any of his attacks, you cannot parry. And you might think, okay, you know what, for a final boss, his health is going down pretty quickly. And while you may be correct in that, just understand that again, we're playing Dark Souls 3. This is not the only phase. You can see that he's already switched forms. Now he's using a curved sword, and as many curved sword users would tell you, he is also capable of using pyromancers. We did get the stagger animation. There is no riposte opportunity, but it is a chance for some free damage. I tried to get Vow of Silence off in time, but it does seem that he was still able to get that buff off. And now we have the pike user. Now, when he does have his pike out, his range is extended considerably. He has spin to win attacks, he has some charging thrust attacks, all of which have considerable range, and you are going to be best served dodging at the very last second. Also, he has a couple of miracles in his repository. He can use Wrath of Gods, and he can also heal. And you need to be aware of that. And then finally, we do have his Sorcerer stage. But luckily, we were able to take his HP down, so now we have killed the Soul of Cinder. And there's the jumping attack. Just listen to the music. By the way, when you see that combo winding up, you need to back off as quickly as you can. Do not try to block, do not try to dodge, just go straight backwards. If you get caught with a single one of those hits, you are now trapped for the duration of that combo, including that giant explosion at the end. Now personally, I actually find this fight to be a little bit easier than the first phase because he gives you several opportunities, like those lightning attacks, in order to get behind him for some free damage. But now, I just want you to enjoy the rest of the fight and enjoy this stunning tribute to Lord Gwyn, and I'll see you at the end. We are granted the soul of the lords. Not the soul of a lord or of the lord, but of the lords. Everyone who has linked the flame before is now embodied in the soul of Cinder, and that very well could include your own player character from Dark Souls 1 if that is the ending that you chose. The soul of the lords is really us. It's all of us. It's everyone who's ever sought to link the flame, to continue the age of fire, the age of man, really. There's been a lot of criticisms of Dark Souls 3, and you know what? Rightfully so. It's not the perfect game. But by golly, if this final fight and this realization that we are a part of the soul of the lords didn't hit me in the feels, then I don't know what would. With the soul of the lords, we can use it for 20,000 souls. We can trade it to Ludlith, or what was Ludlith, for the Sunlight Spear, which does require 40 faith, but it does really great damage, especially if you're up close and personal with it. But you can also get the Firelink Greatsword, which is actually a curved bonfire-looking sword. It can buff with fire, which is the Ember weapon art, and it has the weapon moveset of a Bastard Sword. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Dark Souls 3. We have completed our journey. We can summon the Firekeeper if we wish one of two endings. I am going to show you each of these endings with a very brief description on how to obtain each. If we head back to Firelink Shrine, we still have the opportunity to talk to the Firekeeper.
If when thou peerest upon the first flame, thou wishest yet for a world without fire, for an end to the linking of the fire, then call upon me. I am a Firekeeper, and I tend to the flame to the very end. Thou hast given me eyes, and such it was they showed me.
And you even have the opportunity to heal your own dark sigil if you wish. Now do understand, I did use multiple save states in order to achieve all four of these endings.
Peace discover.
If you wish to link the fire, simply end the game, and don't worry about following any particular quest line.
If only I could be so grossly incandescent.
However, maybe you'd like to see the Firekeeper actually take the flame. So if you give her the eyes and then you summon her, she can do just that.
The first flame quickly fades. Darkness will shortly settle. But one day, tiny flames will dance across the darkness. Like embers linked by Lord's pass.
I beg of you, remember my name, for I may not myself.
Ashen One, hearest thou my voice still?
Perhaps your very last move would be the one of a traitor. And if you wish, you can give the eye to the Firekeeper and summon her. But do something heinous at the last moment.
The first flame quickly fades. Darkness will shortly settle. But one day, tiny flames will dance across the darkness. Like embers linked by Lord's pass.
That keeper has served me well, but enough with her.
Nameless, accursed undead, unfit even to be cinder. And so it is that ash seeketh embers.
But if you manage to follow the Londor questline to its fulfillment, maybe you wish to usurp the flame in one final act of defiance.
Gracious Lord, make London whole.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been everything possible in Dark Souls 3. While I know we do have DLC to complete, and rest assured we will be doing both the Ashes of Ariandel and the Ringed City, but for anyone still watching, I wanted to take this time to thank you, sincerely thank you, for the support and the grace that this community has shared over the years. Dark Souls is without question my favorite game series to date, and it has been my privilege, my joy to share it with as many people as have come out to watch these videos. Thank you for your patience, thank you for your kindness, thank you for your generosity of time. I hope you learned something, and if you did, please let me know in the comments below if I missed something or made a mistake, and I'm sure I have. Let me know that as well so we can all keep learning. But from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much for watching. And I will all see you next time.